A playoff baseball game is coming to Kauffman Stadium next week, so let's talk about how pumped we are next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you get your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast. We're on Odyssey and YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. If you're a first-time listener and you want to know a little bit more about me and this show, I am based here in Kansas City. I work at Sports Radio 810 WHB, doing some hosting, some co-hosting, and a little bit of producing as well. But when it comes to this podcast, when you click on this link, you know that you're going to be getting 30 straight minutes of Royals baseball. Today's show is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right state can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. Well, I'm sure everybody out there is still coming down from the emotional high that you experienced on Tuesday and Wednesday while the Royals were in Baltimore. Two thrilling games that came down to the final batter. No, in the ninth inning of both those games, did the Orioles truly have a great shot to score. But on Tuesday, one bad pitch and a really good swing gives the Royals a loss. Yesterday, with Gunnar Henderson at the plate, one bad pitch from Lucas Erceg, and that game's tied and you're going into extras. But none of that happened because this Royals bullpen was nails all series long. They're now moving on to New York. They'll take on the Yankees beginning on Saturday with a first pitch at 5:38. And of course, let's focus on the two games in New York. The first one being on Saturday night and the second one being on Monday night. It'll be about an hour-ish, or actually not even that, a little under an hour before the Chiefs and Saints kick off at Arrowhead for Monday Night Football, though I know for a lot of people, the Royals will be dominating your television for Monday night, unless you're just a huge football fan, which I won't fight you because I know that I'm going to have two TVs in front of me because after the Royals game, I'll have to have a podcast and I'll also have to do post-game over at 810 for the Chiefs. So it'll be a very busy day on Monday, but I'm going to love it because nobody else has it better right now than Kansas City, it feels like, with a baseball team that's surging and an undefeated football team, though one that has experienced a lot of injuries. But next week is going to be a surreal moment. And I think for a lot of people that I've talked to, they can't wait for Wednesday. Of course, you're excited, as I said, for Saturday and Monday, but Wednesday is going to be different because even if the Royals are down 2-0 in this series, which that wouldn't be my prediction, I kind of envision a split. I could be way wrong. I was wrong about the Baltimore series. I thought it was going to be 1-1 going into today, and Michael Walker would have to pitch in an elimination game. So I was wrong. But I do think that the Royals, with the way their rotation is looked and their bullpen, might be able to grab one in New York, but they're going to have to get the bats going a lot more than they did in that Baltimore series because the Yankees just have too good of a lineup and too much star-studded talent to be able to win games 1-0 and 2-1. But Wednesday is going to be the return to Kauffman Stadium for playoff baseball, something that had a very low percentage of happening when the Royals entered October, just because they had to go out there and take a series on the road in Baltimore. And even though Baltimore hadn't played their best baseball in the second half, it's a tough place to go in there and win. And the Royals were able to not only win one, but win both. Not even need to force a game 3. They got it done. They swept Baltimore right out of the playoffs, and that made everybody flood to wherever you're buying tickets. I'm going over to Gametime to buy my tickets, and they are expensive. They are pricey, but for good reason, because playoff baseball hasn't been in this town in nearly a decade. You haven't got to experience the true, sold-out, loud Kauffman Stadium. We know what opening day looks like. I was there for opening day. A lot of you listeners out there were in attendance for opening day. It's different, man. You know, opening day is a glorious thing. It's probably the thing I love most in sports. You know, I'm a huge basketball fan, so I love the NCAA tournament, so opening day is right around that. Playoff baseball is unmatched, in my opinion. I would put playoff baseball over any other playoff sport, in my opinion. Of course, I'm biased. I'm doing a baseball podcast. But the reason it's so special, and here's my big argument for those that say, well, I love playoff football. I love tailgating for one game. It's do or die. You know, in baseball, you have to win a couple of games. In basketball, you got to win a couple of games. Why I think baseball is so special for a postseason atmosphere and why everybody is so excited for Wednesday is that there's 162 baseball games out there. There's 81 home games. When there is that many home games, you don't get environments like what you'll see on Wednesday, whether it be an afternoon game or a night game. I pray to God it's a night game because there's nothing like nighttime playoff baseball, which the Yankees are going to get 2 nighttime playoff games against the Royals on Saturday and Monday. But when you have 81 home games a year, how do you convince somebody to go, or convince a lot of people to go sell out a random game, even if it's a Friday night, and have towels waving, have every person standing from start to finish? How do you do that and bring the significance of a regular season baseball game, even if you have a good baseball team? Like we know now, in the same way it happened in 2015, the Royals are going to have great attendance next April. That's what happened in 2015. After the Royals made their playoff run, and I think even by winning one series, people are now bought in again. And they know that a lot of these guys that are playing now are going to be back next year. And the Royals front office will probably add a few more pieces to make them one of the favorites, or at least the favorites to get to the postseason again. Probably not a favorite in the American League because we know that they just don't have that type of money to spend. But you're going to have good crowds. You could sell out Kauffman Stadium on opening day and maybe that opening week. You can have great crowds. It's not like October baseball because in regular season games, it's not do or die. It's not going to impact what happens the next day. You know, if you lose opening day, we saw this year, the Royals lost the next day and they won game 3. Did that mean anything for October baseball? No, it didn't, because the Twins missed the playoffs after starting 2-1, and the Royals are 1-2, and they're now in the ALDS. So to me, why playoff baseball is so unmatched, why Wednesday goes unmatched, is because you're going to have this stadium like it's never been in 10 years or 9 years for that matter. And that's the same with everybody out there. We're going to talk about this in the final segment. I stayed up and watched nearly every pitch of that Padres and Braves game. That place was ridiculous. I mean, that's one of the loudest baseball games I've ever heard. And maybe it was because the mics were awesome. They had a great setup, whatever it was. They were in full just pandemonium. And that game wasn't really close until the last 2 innings. It was 5-2 for the majority of that game. But San Diego was rocking, man. And it got me pumped up for Wednesday because the Royals are not just going to have any opponent there. It's the New York Yankees. You know, I'm getting chills at the thought of, you know, I think the way they can do it still, because it'll be the Royals' first home game, they're allowed to do that opening day look where you can line up the players and you introduce everybody. I get chills at the thought of when the Royals PA is going to say, and now let's meet the champions of the American League East, the New York Yankees, and the boos that rain down on them will be like when Robinson Cano got booed at the home run derby. It's just a full, you know, anger and disdain toward one team. And the Yankees know it, and the Yankees relish in that, right? And you can't say that, you know, Kansas City doesn't know how it feels like. It's now like that for the Chiefs. You know, the Chiefs get booed loudly by random opponents that don't even have a rivalry with them, as they should. When you've got a brand, you've got an iconic look, you're going to be booed. And those Yankees jerseys look the exact same as they did 50, 60 years ago. They're a great team to play, and they're a great team to host for a playoff game. And that's why I think the environment we're going to see on Wednesday might top any other postseason game not in the World Series in 14 and 15. Because in 14, yeah, the wild card, I think, would go pretty unrivaled because that was the first taste in 29 years. So I'll put that in a category of its own, and I'll put the World Series in 2014 and 15 in a league of its own. When I go just ALDS and ALCS, I went to a couple of those games. They were deafening loud. I think we're going to see a different type of loud on Wednesday. I think we are going to see a city, yes, that has been deprived for nearly a decade of playoff baseball, but you also add in the opponent, right? This is when you look at that schedule and go, man, we're playing for The ALCS, we're playing for an American League pennant or a chance to get to a series to play for the American League pennant against the New York Yankees. There's nothing against the Tigers in Cleveland. But if the Royals get to the ALCS, if they pull off the shocker of all shockers and get past Aaron Judge and the Yankees, the ALCS is certainly going to be a fun one. It's going to be a blast. But the Royals and Tigers or the Royals and Guardians doesn't have the same feel as the Royals and the Yankees. Like, you are going to see a madhouse at Kauffman Stadium on Wednesday. And if the Royals win just one in New York, you add an extra layer to that. Or I'll go one step further. I don't think this is going to happen, but we're just playing the hypotheticals here. They take 2 in New York and they can clinch in game 3. That place is going to be ridiculous. And I know tickets are expensive, but start blocking off your schedule with what you're going to be doing on Wednesday. I know we don't have a game time yet, but I know that no matter what I have going on, the Royals and Yankees game 3 at Kauffman Stadium is going to take priority there. I'm not missing that and wouldn't miss that for the world. We'll take our first break of the show. When we come back, we finally know the matchups for game 1 and game 2 in Baltimore, in New York. What do we think about those matchups? And do the Royals have the advantage in any of those games? We'll dive into that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to give a shout out to our first sponsor and our title sponsor in Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay even in your rival city during the postseason. Hey, maybe you're looking to go to New York. Find the best hotel, find the best spot wherever you may go to eat over at Booking.com because they're going to have you covered. Because maybe it's time to taste test your baseball's competition's stadium cuisine. Luckily on Booking.com, you can find the stadium stay that's just right for you. With Booking.com's wide variety of choice across the U.S., you can go incognito to all of your rivals' city. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. So book today at Booking.com, Booking.yeah. We do know the matchups for game 1 on Saturday night in the Bronx against the Yankees. It'll be Garrett Cole. I think that was a no-brainer that Garrett Cole was going to be the game 1 starter, though he's had a little bit of a unique year. Still, damn good numbers. Let's not lose sight of that. This really feels like, the type of Garrett Cole that still is going to be a tough out, that you're not going to be able to bombard with 6 or 7 runs because he's been damn good this year in 104 innings, right? A 0.95 whip, 2.93 ERA. Garrett Cole, that's his postseason numbers there. But the regular season, 95 innings this year, not far off from what his career postseason numbers are. But 99 strikeouts, 1.13 whip. I mean, this is Garrett Cole, man. Garrett Cole just has the name. He's the household name that everybody talks about. And you just recognize him with the Yankees. There would be no other guy going in game 1 than Garrett Cole. Even if Garrett Cole had thrown like 50 innings this year, I think he would have been the game 1 starter. And to me, it just feels like that's how this series should start off. I'll be honest, I would have been a little bit disappointed if the Yankees had gone with anybody else. And to me, I just love the thought of the Royals going in with this historic series on the line of Royals and Yankees. You really pay homage to the 80s and the 70s and all that. And you get the best of the best. Being a baseball fan that I am, I want to see the best of the best. I want to see a situation in which the Royals don't get gifted a scenario where you have to face the number 4 in game 1 or anything like that. And Michael Wacha's going game 1 for Kansas City. So you get Garrett Cole and Wacha in game 1. And then you get Carlos Rodon and Cole Reagans in game 2. So that's what we're going to be getting for the first 2 games of the postseason in New York, ALDS, that is. And I think it's a fantastic matchup. And I do believe the Royals have the advantage in one of those games, Cole Reagans over Carlos Rodon, though the Royals have struggled with Carlos Rodon in the couple of starts they faced him this year. big power stuff, strikeout stuff. Carlos Rodon's going to be fun to pitch. He is a fiery guy. With that crowd behind him, he's going to be very tough to face. Garrett Cole's more of the stoic type. He might get fired up from time to time, but no, he's a stone cold killer, man. He is cold-blooded. And this Royals lineup is going to have their hands full. But they also had their hands full with Corbin Burns and Zach Eflin. They felt like they were at odds in this situation, or in that series and in that specific situation. But still, their rotation and their bullpen did enough to win those games. And now I'm looking on the fly here on Twitter. I know I've been kind of looking up and down and stumbling over my words a little bit, trying to get all the information I can going into the series. They just announced the broadcasting crews for TBS. The Royals and Yankees are going to get Bob Costas and Ron Darling. This comes from Jimmy Traina, I believe, on Twitter, writer for Sports Illustrated Now. So that's the broadcasting crew for this series between the Royals and the Yankees. But on Saturday and on Monday, those are going to be the pitching matchups in New York. You know about this lineup, right? We know who the Royals are going to have to worry about. We know the top-heavy lineup that is the New York Yankees. You got to worry about Aaron Judge. You got to worry about Jazz Chisholm. You got to worry about Juan Soto, Giancarlo Stanton, Gleyber Torres. Anthony Volpe's going to be in there. Austin Wells gave the Royals a lot of trouble in both the series that they faced him in Kansas City and in New York. And for the Royals' sake, I'm not even sure that there is a exact recipe of beating the New York Yankees. There's a few different ways that I do look at this series and how the Royals might be able to squeak out one in New York, because that's what we got to focus on right now before we even know the pitching matchups in Game 3 and Game 4. And those are probably going to be impacted by what happens in these first two games. And in Game 1, I think you can look at Michael Wacha in the same way the Royals looked at Seth Lugo in Game 2 in Baltimore, is that you're not expecting Michael Wacha to go 6-7 innings in this game. I think that'd be nice. I think you can hope for a really good start from Michael Wacha, but I think if he gave you 5 innings, even 4 2/3, and kept the Yankees to 2 runs or less, you have a spot where I think this bullpen could shine a little bit. They're going to have a much tougher lineup to go up against, where you're getting somebody like Aaron Judge and then Juan Soto and Giancarlo Stanton and Jazz Chisholm all consecutively. When you're attacking that lineup, it's not as simple as, you keep Aaron Judge off base and you're in the clear, right? You're going to have to go through 2, 3, 4 more guys that can run into one and really cause a lot of damage in that lineup. And whereas I think you got benefited by the dimensions of Camden Yards, having the deep left field, the short porch, and right, I think the Royals played to that advantage a little bit. Yankee Stadium, it's short all the way around, right? And they've got 2 immensely powerful right-handed hitters and 2 immensely powerful left-handed hitters, sprinkled in with guys like Gleyber Torres and Austin Wells, who can easily run one out of the ballpark. So there's nowhere you can hide or try to pitch to take away the power of some of those hitters. Like anytime a right-handed hitter came up in that Baltimore series, I didn't have the fear that they were going to go yard, because left field felt like it was 500 yards away. If anybody knows what the Polo Grounds look like, to dead center field, that's what it felt like for left field at Camden Yards. Yankee Stadium, there's going to be a lot of cheapies. And so there might be times that you pitch Aaron Judge well, or you pitch Giancarlo Stanton well, or Juan Soto well, and they just kind of, flip one to left field. And I say flip pretty seriously. It could leave the yard. Now, the Royals are playing in the same ballpark. So there are going to be moments in which I think a ball leaves the yard and it's a home run in like 2 ballparks. And it would be the short porch at Camden Yards and the short porch at Minute Maid Park, and then also Yankee Stadium. So actually 3. The Royals do play in that same ballpark. So they've got the same chance to use that short porch. They could flip one to left field off the bat of a left-handed hitter. They could use the short porch in right field with a right-handed hitter. So you can't really use that excuse in a postseason series. You can maybe use it for an entire season where the Yankees get 81 home games and some of those home run numbers are inflated. But I've also looked at it this way too, that, Aaron Judge and Stanton, they're both powerful guys. They can hit the ball 470 feet. Do they also get a couple of cheapies? Sure, that happens when you play 81 home games there. But in a playoff series where, if you're the Royals, you're hoping only to play twice there because you can win the series in Kansas City. They play in the same dimensions. They have guys in that lineup with power. This could be a series for somebody like Yuli Gurriel, who you think doesn't have a lot of power, but you get one to the opposite field, or Hunter Renfroe, same thing there. Hit it 345, 350 feet, and you got a home run right there. And you can use a little bit more power than you had in that Baltimore series because nobody on the Royals left the yard in that Baltimore series. Only Cedric Mullins was able to leave the yard, and he was close to having 2 home runs in that series. He had one that hit off the top of the wall in right field in game 1, but then crushed one in game 2 off Seth Lugo. It's a different ballpark at Yankee Stadium, and it's a tough one to pitch in. But the Royals, I thought, pitched very well in September when they visited the Yankees there, and I do think that overall, this should be a balanced playing field for both teams. I've never really agreed with that argument when it's the playoffs now. So these two teams are playing in the dimensions. If you want to say, hey, they get to play there a lot more. They're more comfortable playing in a ballpark like that, where the Royals play 81 times at Kauffman Stadium, where it's just a giant empty field out there where you got to hit the ball. It feels like 500 feet to get one out of there. It's different at Yankee Stadium. So maybe you could say the Royals aren't built for Yankee Stadium and the Yankees are, but hey, it's a same playing field. They get to use the same dimensions there when the Royals are at the plate, when the Yankees are at the plate. It should be a blast. Atmosphere is going to be ridiculous. I mean, Saturday can't get here soon enough, but also that atmosphere in Kansas City is going to be equally good, in my opinion. But we'll know those pitching matchups a little bit later on into the weekend, but we only know right now for New York, which will be game 1, Michael Walker versus Garrett Cole, and then game 2 is going to be Carlos Rodon versus Cole Reagans. We'll take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's go over the rest of the postseason bracket and what's going on there. That's coming up on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to give a shout out to our second sponsor today in FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. And looking ahead to Saturday, one thing I'm going back and forth on would be the strikeout total for Garrett Cole, and if I want to take the over or the under. The Royals don't strike out. They value putting the ball in play. They were able to do that against Corbin Burns. They were able to do that against Zach Eflin. And wherever they're setting it at for Garrett Cole on the strikeout total, I think I'm going to lead toward the under because the Royals are probably going to try to ambush him, not get into a lot of 2-strike counts. And even if they do a very good job of putting the ball in play. So I would probably take the under going into Saturday on Garrett Cole's strikeout total. I also want to give a shout out to our next sponsor in PrizePicks. And with PrizePicks, you can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. And community plays under the promos tab in the app. You can view the entries for some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. And it also puts its members first. So all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. So again, download the app and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's PrizePicks. Go and run your game. Well, there's only one postseason game tonight, and that will be in Milwaukee because the Mets and Brewers are playing for their season later on this evening. So that's the only game you can look forward to, though it's after the workday. It'll be a 6:08 first pitch. It'll be on ESPN. Jose Quintana, the former White Sox, will be going for the Mets, and Tobias Myers will be going for the Brewers. The Brewers stormed back last night, had a couple of big home runs from the 20-year-old Jackson Chourio to tie the game in the 8th, and then Garrett Mitchell had the go-ahead 2-run home run, which was enough for the Brewers to hang on 5-3. So they do force the elimination game, game 3, and should be a lot of fun tonight. Whereas also last night, the Padres eliminated the Atlanta Braves, who the Royals just saw at the tail end of the regular season. They won 5-4. I talked about that environment and how phenomenal it was. I expect a similar environment in New York. I expect a similar environment in Kansas City next week as well. The Astros got eliminated by the gritty Tigers, the Detroit Tigers. AJ Hinch and his group won 5-2, a 4-run eighth inning, which I didn't see coming at all. After Jackson Jobe had came in the seventh inning and blew that game, I thought that was going to be the tip of the iceberg for the Tigers. But they feel like a team right now. I hate to say it, but they kind of feel like a team of destiny. From where they were 30, 35 days ago to where they are now, 3 wins away from the American League Championship Series, ridiculous turnaround. And we get an ALCS this year without the Houston Astros for the first time in a long time. So even if you were not a huge fan of Detroit with how quickly they were gaining ground in the Royals, I guess if you hate the Houston Astros, then yesterday was great for you, because after Jackson Jobe came into that game, which, the Tigers are an interesting bunch, because already in game 2, right? Game 1, you have Tarek Skubal, phenomenal Cy Young winner, Triple Crown winner. Game 2, they're already going with an opener, a bullpen game. Now, they've got one of the best bullpens next to Cleveland, which is why I can't wait for that series. It's a battle of the bullpens, basically. But Tyler Holton, who's been ridiculous for the last 2 years, he was the opener. And then they used Hannafy, they used Herter, they used Brieske, they used Jackson Jobe, Gunther, and then Vest as well to close out that game. Didn't even use Jason Foley to get the final 3 outs, because he didn't pitch well in game 1, where the Astros nearly found a way to walk it off in the bottom of the 9th inning. But already in game 2, using the opener role, and I haven't seen just yet who the Tigers are going to be going with. They don't even have an announced starter in game 1. It'll be Tanner Bybee going for the Guardians in game 1. First pitch 12:08 on Saturday. And then you also have the winner of the Brewers and the Mets taking on the Phillies at 3:08 there on Saturday as well. Zach Wheeler going in game 1 for Philly. And then the series that I think next to the Royals and Yankees, because of bias reasons, of course, that I'm going to be paying full attention to is the Padres and the Dodgers. That does not get any better. With the way the Padres looked in the second half, with the expectations of the Dodgers this year, you got the close proximity-ish. It's not really, super, super close. But Padres, San Diego, and the Dodgers in L.A. is about as close as you can get for a playoff matchup like this. Dylan Cease going game 1 for San Diego, and Jack Flaherty going game 1 for the Dodgers. 7:38 p.m. Central Time first pitch. I am kind of surprised that's on FS1, whereas the Phillies and winner of Brewers and Mets gets Fox in the afternoon. Probably has something to do with college football later on. I haven't actually checked that schedule yet. But Padres and Dodgers, man, that is a ridiculous lineup for this coming Saturday. But there are, at this point, still looks like 9 teams remaining after tonight. That'll be the final 4 on both sides there. So we are shaping up to have a fantastic National League Championship Series, in my opinion, because there's so many heavy hitters left. I mean, the winner of the Dodgers and the Padres, that's a great team to have in the NLCS. And then the winner of the Phillies and Brewers and Mets. I mean, if you get the Phillies and the Dodgers, or the Phillies and the Padres, I'd even like to see somebody like, the Brewers get a chance at it, but they just always seem to fall short for some reason in the postseason. But that's a lot of heavy hitters on the National League side. As for the American League side, that's kind of the underdog tale, with the exception of the New York Yankees. So the only thing preventing the Yankees from the World Series is the American League Central. It could be the Royals, could be the Guardians, could be the Tigers. But in the ALCS, either the Guardians or the Tigers are going to be playing for the World Series. And that's crazy to think about. But so many good storylines. That's what's lined up right now, and that's the schedule for Saturday, when there's going to be a full slate of postseason baseball. And your Royals will be playing in the evening slate on the American League side. Well, that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Want to thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, find Locked On MLB. Baseball Guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every aspect of the playoff picture. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to have a Mailbag Friday for our 6th and final episode of the week. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.